Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, colleague, relative, associate, enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. This is going to be pretty short. There was 3 cards on overall this weekend. I watched some of the Queensbury card, and I saw some, or the main parts, I should say, of the top rank card. I started watching a little bit of the Pro Box card, but then decided to watch Backlash instead. So if you know, you know. But yeah, let me kind of just go a bit of chronological order, just kind of give my thoughts a bit about Queensbury specifically, and then yeah, I guess we can call it a day. So I tuned in from about 7. I got back from the gym, and as I got back, I believe the Owen Cooper and Chris Congo fight was on. I was about 4 rounds in. Now I didn't actually get to watch this fight. I was actually out doing some laundry, trying to get the house in order before the weekend's over. I'm sure you know how that goes. But I came back and I wasn't even really sure what the situation was, because when I came back, it was Liam Davis in the ring with Troy Jones, and I predicted overall look that Liam Davis would win. I thought he would win by stoppage in probably about the 8th or the 9th round, purely because Troy Jones doesn't have much power looking at his resume. So I figured it would be like a bit of a boxing match, a bit fiddly, but Davis would, while he isn't like the biggest of biggest punchers, but I felt that him coming up to the weight, sort of being like that sort of new fresh 126 guy, would just sort of take over and take effect. And it didn't quite happen that way. It was pretty much one-sided in the first couple of rounds for Davis, but then Troy Jones did come back sort of in the middle rounds, which was fair enough to him. Davis sort of then went back in front, sort of just towards the end, with Troy Jones putting up a very spirited effort in like the last 1 or 2. So look, it was a decent enough performance. Nothing really much to talk about outside of that. Coming his first fight at 126, can't really say too much. Then that's when I found out that Owen Cooper had actually beat Chris Congo. Now I was surprised at this. I believe it was a points decision, but I think it was only the referee that was scoring, and I think it was like 94, 96. Or should say 96, 94, sorry, to Owen Cooper. I haven't been able to watch the fight back to give my opinion, but obviously it was very disappointing. I did think that Chris Congo would win the fight. It was a bit curious. Obviously he went up to 154 and then said no, I'm a 147, and wanted to go back down, but I figured that he would just have too much experience for Owen Cooper, and just obviously be the naturally bigger guy and make all of that tell. Again, I haven't seen the fight, so I can't comment too much. I guess shout out to October Red. I haven't watched the entire interview, but I know he did a post-fight interview with her where he's not best pleased with himself and considering his future, or at least he said that those are the kind of thoughts that are running through his mind. But yeah, I'll have to watch that and kind of maybe give my opinions on the casual stream or whatever else I decide to do this week. Then we went to Ezra Taylor versus Liam Davis. He fought... No, it wasn't Troy Jones, sorry. Ezra Taylor fought Troy Jones. Liam Davis fought Kyle Walker. Yeah. I don't know how I let that one slip. Yeah, sorry. Liam Davis fought Kyle Walker, who was 12-0 with 2 KOs. And he was 16-1 with 8 KOs. And it was Ezra Taylor against Troy Jones. Now, this fight was pretty much based on, I guess, the winner getting a shot at Louis Edmondson for the British and Commonwealth titles. Now I know Ezra spoke quite, I won't say, well, maybe I will say he spoke quite dismissively of Troy Jones and Louis Edmondson and basically every other light heavyweight in the division. He said, I'm looking past everyone until I reach the champion, and then the champion is the one that has my sole focus, which was an interesting take to hear. Obviously, again, that was an October Red interview, so if you haven't checked out her channel or checked out those interviews, make sure you do so. But I guess watching this fight, He's obviously recently joined up with Malik Scott, and I can see some of the things that have been worked on with Malik, I guess, in the gym, just from the first couple of rounds that I was watching. But with that being said, I will say that if his mindset is that none of these guys are on my level, and the only person that I'm focusing on is the champions at the top, and once I'm ready and when I get up there, then obviously that's my time. He's either got to dial it back a bit and start focusing more on these guys that he's facing, or he's got to be doing a much better job with beating them. Now, I predicted that he would win the fight. I think I said I predicted it would be either a unanimous or late round stoppage, but I think I said it would be a UD. I don't quite remember basis picks right now. But with that being said, watching the fight, while I do think that he won the fight and, I guess won it clearly, it seemed for me a bit too competitive for someone talking the way Ezra's been talking. And that could be for a multitude of things. Sometimes you just have a person that's your bogeyman, or the person that just knows you best. I know that they've done a lot of sparring together. I know that they're friends or friendly outside of the ring kind of thing. So maybe it's just the fact of they knew each other and it was always going to kind of be that way. But again, as I said, I've always had a lot of time for Ezra. He's always had a lot of time for the channel, so I'm a supporter of his, and I believe that he's got the goods to do, very, very well in the division. But I can only go by what you tell me. So if you tell me that these man ain't on your level, you shouldn't be having this competitive of a fight with a guy that's not on your level. And even if it was a case of, oh, he overlooked him, well, number one, he knows him, so he shouldn't be able to overlook someone he's actually been in the ring with multiple times. But outside of that, Jones was also overlooking him because they were both talking about Louis Edmondson and basically the fight after the fight, which can be very dangerous. But ultimately, no one had an advantage in that point. So I want to reserve judgment and wait to see what the next fight with Malik looks like and the next fight after that, and see if I can continue seeing the improvements. It was, a competent enough performance, but it just didn't really give me the, not so much the wow factor, but just the extra confidence to say, yeah, like this guy can really do something in the division. And that's what I need to see right now. It's like I said, especially talking the way you're talking, like you've got to be able to deliver in a certain fashion. And I wasn't really impressed with the performance, put it that way. It was adequate, and I think Ezra's got a lot more in the tank, and I think he's got a lot more to show, and I think he's a lot better than what he did show. But I need to see more for me to fully invest and believe that, yeah, like I said, he can be the next guy up, or that guy in like 2 or 3 years time, like legitimately fighting for a world title, and I actually believe he's got a chance of winning. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see on that one. Then we had Anthony Cacace versus Lee Wood. Now I picked Cacace to win the fight, figuring he would just be a bit too big for Lee Wood, and clearly probably he would hit harder than anyone that Lee Wood has faced, or at least be in that upper echelon, bearing in mind that Lee Wood doesn't particularly have like the greatest of chins anyway. Michael Conlon put him down, so that kind of will tell you a lot in terms of that. But I thought the fight would go points. I did pick Cacace to win a unanimous points decision. I didn't think Lee Wood would allow himself to quote unquote get knocked out or get stopped in his hometown. Plus, I thought that because he's also got power, that Cacace might respect that a bit more, and it would be a lot more of a cagey affair. I mean, it was cagey in those first couple of rounds, but ultimately, like, Cacace was letting his hands go from early. Lee Wood was very off the pace. He was falling into a lot of shots, mistiming a lot of shots. Footwork didn't really seem like it was where it usually is. Being out of the ring for 19 months clearly was a mistake, clearly was a problem. Look, there was a lot of negotiations and stuff he wanted with Eddie Hearn, and he wanted the city ground fight and all of that. It seems like all of those gesturings and posturings and, just wasted efforts at this point did a disservice to him, because I actually do think that a more active Lee Wood, like someone that, was more at the peak of his powers, had been in the ring maybe twice or even three times in those 19 months that he was out, I think would have actually done a lot better and probably have been able to win that fight. But I just knew that Cacace, being the naturally bigger guy, the more active guy, and the guy that's on the run at the moment, was, especially also being in the other guy's hometown, was gonna have everything switched on and dialed up to 100. And he did. I didn't expect the knockout, but it came, or the stoppage. Ben Davison threw in the towel. It's not the first time he's done that for Lee Wood, although on this particular occasion I agree with him, and I think it was the right thing to do. I don't know what Lee Wood does next. He might continue. He said certain things after the fight which made you believe that he might continue. He said that, I'm not sure, maybe it was the layoff, being out for so long, which might then mean that, okay, he wants to give it one more go to see if he can be sharper in another fight. Don't know. I don't know who that fight could be with. I don't know where it goes, but whatever happens, he's always fun to watch. So if anything, I'll be interested to see what he does next. But if that is the end, then, I mean, he's definitely been an overachiever. So I'll give him that. Anthony Cacace, I think they're talking about trying to get a fight with Oshaki Foster. Don't know if Ray Ford is going to be too happy to hear that. Although, maybe that would be a good fight. You do another 5v5 and you do Anthony Cacace against Ray Ford. I'd definitely like to see that fight. That would be very, very entertaining to watch. But, yeah. All right, so moving on to the Pro Box card. Now, I didn't actually get a chance to watch. I watched a few bits of like the sort of, I guess, the prelims part. Then I decided to watch Backlash instead. But there was only two fights on this card that I really predicted and was looking at watching anyway, which was the Nazarena Romero versus Maeli Flores fight, which was what weight was that? I think it was super bantamweight, and Nazarena Romero lost a split decision. Now, I didn't expect that. I thought that she would win a unanimous decision or possibly get a very late stoppage, because she hits very hard. Probably the hardest punch in Argentinian pound for pound that's currently in the sport of boxing. I haven't seen the fight, so again, I can't comment, but I did see the scorecards, and Nazarena Romero had a scorecard of 98 to 92 in her favor, but then the other two scorecards were 94 96 to Maeli Flores. So that's where I then need to see, what sort of what the judges were watching, because that's like a 6-round swing there. So I definitely need to sort of have a look, but I do want to, and I will get around to having a look at that fight. Also, Erickson Lubin versus Ardale Holmes. Now, I did predict that Lubin will win this fight and win it via stoppage. He did it in the 11th round. I haven't seen the fight totally to be able to comment, but I think I predicted like round 8 or 9 or something like that. I'm not sure if I predicted as late as 11, but yeah, I guess the experience level ultimately of Lubin held out. Obviously a much bigger puncher, more experienced in the pro game. Ardale Holmes, I think, had only had like 6 KOs in his 17 victories anyway, so he wasn't really a puncher like that. So probably Lubin wouldn't have been too worried about what was coming back. Again, can't really comment until I watch it back. Top rank card. Now, I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of this. All I saw was the chief support, or the co-main, and the main event. I did see that Giovanni Santillan won via unanimous decision, which I think I predicted he would do. Who else was on there? What's his name? Argy Cortez, I think, also got a unanimous decision. Yeah, I think that's all I can really remember from there. But then Raymond Murataya versus Zaur Abdulayev. Now I did predict Murataya would win the fight by a unanimous decision, and or well, decision of, so it might have been unanimous or majority, but I'm sure it was unanimous. I said he won fairly comfortably. The scorecards were two of the scorecards were a little wider than I thought they should be. The 116, 112, I thought was fine. 115, was there 115, 113? Or was it was 117, 111, 116, 112. I think it was 115, 113 was the other one as well. Or it might have been 118, 110. I can't, if it was that, I thought that was too wide. The 116, 112 I thought was fine, and the 115, 113 I thought were fine. I thought it was a competitive enough fight, but clear enough that Murataya definitely won minimum 7 rounds, that with no issue, with no conjecture, with no debate. So yeah, Morataya gets the interim IBF lightweight title. Now he gets to face Vasily Lomachenko in October. If Lomachenko is back from his back injury and he decides that he wants to fight, that is the next fight he has to have. No step asides, no other unifications, etc. If he decides that he's not gonna fight and he retires or whatever, then Murataya becomes the full IBF champion, and then they're possibly talking about fights with him, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, who's obviously on top rank, which makes sense for him naturally. And then I guess you might also look at the Tank Davis route, although he doesn't unify with anybody, so I doubt that one happens in any way, shape, or form. Next, there was Emmanuel Navarrete versus Charlie Suarez. Now, this one was interesting because Navarrete missed weight twice, and he only just got the weight on the final try. Now he went up to 135 before and lost to Berenchek, and then decided to go back down to 130. But now he's saying 130 is tough to make. Well, I think it's he's got a definite body type and body shape which doesn't lend itself to I guess being in shape at all times. Probably the diet is another thing there as well, but he's not big enough to be 135. And realistically, I think with a lot more discipline and making the weight correctly and the nutritionist, he could probably still make 126. So I think 130 is where he needs to stay. He just needs to be a much better disciplined with his diet and his training, and just being I guess an athlete. With that being said, though, I thought he would knock out Suarez, and I thought he would get him in about the 8th to 9th round. Now, funny enough, the fight did end in the 8th, but it ended in a technical decision because Navarrete suffered a cut due to a head clash, which obviously could no longer continue. Now, I fell asleep halfway through this fight, so I haven't actually seen that part. When I went to go rewind it and watch it on my EE box, the recording cut out after the first round. So I remember seeing the first 4 to 5 rounds live, and then I fell asleep. So I haven't watched any of the highlights back. I've just, this is just what I've heard, and this is what I've seen in the report. So it'll be interesting to see how the fight was playing out. If he was starting to maybe lose a bit of steam, we're having to make the weight and all of that. It will be very interesting to check. But look, that was pretty much the weekend. Now, the one thing I actually do want to comment on before I get out of here. On Friday, there was Most Valuable Prospects card on the Zone. So MVP, Nikisa Badera and Jake Paul and stuff. There was 2 fights that I was actually looking at watching. There was Natalie Dove, aka Nat No Love Dove, versus Nayeli Rodriguez. They were fighting it was 4 rounds, but it was 3-minute rounds they were competing for. And the fight ended in a draw. I think all 3 judges had it as a draw. So that pretty much was the correct decision. From what I watched, it did look like it was 2 rounds apiece. There was 1 round, probably a swing round. If it swung anyway, it probably would have swung to Nat Dove, but I think the draw was the correct decision. They're talking about possibly running it back on the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor card. I know, having watched the video from Ring IQ, he thinks that they should actually go their separate ways. build up their resumes, get some more experience, possibly even try to get some world titles, then come back to rematch each other later on down the line. To be honest, either way works for me. If either of them lose in a rematch, it doesn't derail their abilities to actually gain a world title anyway. But if you want to, go separate ways and then come back in the hopes that you will be bigger names and it'll be a bigger fight, you make more money, fair enough. But the fight that got my attention on that card specifically, and I was mainly wanting to see Daniel Perro versus Cesar Navarro. Now, Daniel Perro, as you guys will know, as I said on Basis Picks, is the younger brother of Lenier Perro, who Matchroom just signed to a co-promotional deal. Now, I don't know if Daniel is actually signed with Most Valuable Prospects or MVP Promotions. He has been on several of their cards, but I don't know if that's just because he's based in Florida and their cards are in Florida and it just makes sense for them to put him on there. But he is, one of the quote-unquote rising stars of the division, Cuban heavyweight, along with his brother. And it's all about getting that experience and whatnot. Now, both of these guys are a lot more front foot heavy than someone like Frank Sanchez, who also is obviously the most prominent Cuban heavyweight that we have out at the moment. But these guys definitely look to throw those punches, get on the front foot, etc. However, this fight for me was just going to be a standard routine. I felt that Perro would win sort of around about round 7 to round 8, via stoppage with Navaro, who about 5 years ago used to actually campaign at welterweight. That's actually the crazy thing. So he was a 147 pounder. Then I think he just stopped fighting for like 2, 3, 4 years. Then he comes back at heavyweight, weighing like 216 pounds. But if you look at him and you look at his actual frame, he doesn't look fat. He actually looks like a proper solid individual. So he's either put the weight on very well. He always had the ability to carry the weight, etc. He even had a fight. He fought down at light heavyweight as well. After going up to heavyweight, dropping like 40 pounds or something, fighting at light heavyweight, and then deciding, I want to go back up because I want to be the first ever Mexican-born heavyweight champion. Well, he was almost fast on his way to doing so. In the third round of this fight with Lenier Perro, Perro was pretty much, it was sort of neck and neck in the first couple of rounds, but Perro was just starting to warm into it. But he ate the most hellacious overhand right I've seen in a while. And he went down he fell. He went down in a heap. Eyes looked fully glazed, but somehow the experience to not try to get up too fast definitely helped him. He managed to get back onto his feet. Navaro came in, big onslaught, entourage, barrage of punches. Perro tried to hold on a couple times. I thought, oh gosh, he's about to bust my prediction. He ended up going down again in the round, just through accumulation and not properly being steady on his feet. But then he managed to get up, weather the rest of the storm for that round. And Navarro actually felt like his output went down, like he almost blew his load, blew his gas tank. And Perro actually played him close to the chest towards the end of the round, started trying to fight back more on the inside, and actually did well to claw back some ground in the round. And then sort of round 4, round 5, he's sort of getting his legs back, but he's keeping himself composed. And at this point, Navarro is he's just like looking for singular shots. He's taking shots, he's absorbing shots, he's hunkering down, and you can see by him hunkering down, he just wants to land that big looping overhand right again. But Perro this time was obviously switched on to it for the rest of the fight, and it was just a good, good action-packed stuff all the way up until the 10th round, where Navarro even then got on his feet and started sort of moving around the ring, almost like he's trying to lure Perro in to set something up to try and prove, oh yeah, I'm not tired. But his output had dropped mad by then, so yes, he was very tired at this point. End of the fight, Perro ended up winning, unanimous decision. It was 96 to 92, the scorecards were. Anyway, if you haven't watched that fight, watch that fight. It's well worth it. Trust me, it's a very good fight to watch. But yeah, look, that's pretty much everything for this weekend. I'm gonna chill out now. I need to go sort out some stuff. I'm gonna go to the gym before the weather changes. Thank you very much for watching. There will be some content throughout this week, including, I believe, a couple of interviews which I'm trying to line up, and some other little bits and pieces. Definitely we'll be a casual stream on Tuesday, so make sure you guys look in for that. But thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next one. Until then, peace.